Hi, folks. I think I did the opening good that time, I think. Anyway, before we come on with my pal and special guest, I just wanted again.
Jeffrey Spencer asked if you ever
Speak louder.
if Jeffrey
If I ever got married and had kids
children
and everything else. No, Jeffrey, I never got married. I knew I wasn't a marrying kind. I just wanted to do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. I wanted to race cars and race horses, and that's what I did. Never got married and never had children. And that's it. Now, I've been trying to get this guy on, my pal, Ian McKinlay. I've been trying to get him on. I called him about 6 months ago, and he's always all around the world. He's the best at what he does. He's the best at the best. I don't even, but I'm going to let him explain everything that he does. But I just want to, and those of you who watch my podcast know that I always said that probably, and there's no real percentage, I'm just guessing, but probably 50% of lameness that people, trainers think are primary problems are really, and I learned very, very early on in the late 50s how important the foot was to a horse. And through my podcast, I spoke about a lot of that. And so I ever had, the first horse I ever claimed in New York was from Anthony Abatello, and he had a bad quarter crack right up into the hairline, and he had a hole drilled on each side of the quarter crack, and he had a nail just bent over to try to hold the foot together. Well, the guy, my pal Ian, that's coming on now, he perfected the glue on everything. Let him explain it. He's the best that ever was and the best that ever will be. They call him from all parts of the world, and he's gonna get into that. Now I'm gonna click him on right now, and I hope everything works right.
Hey, Larry.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
I can.
I just gave a little introduction. I hope you heard the introduction I gave you. Every time I talk, and the people that watch my podcast know that for the last probably 10, 15 podcasts, it switched from my story to all about horse racing and both thoroughbreds and standardbreds. And then they asked me questions, and they asked me for my opinion, what I think, because I was in both. And to me, and I'll say it now because I said it a million times, in my opinion, there's no comparison in the trainers and knowledge and the standardbred trainers compared to thoroughbred trainers. I won't go into that now because this show is about you, and I want to introduce. And by the way, I've been trying to get a thoroughbred trainer on this show for the last 7 or 8 weeks because I talk a lot about him, and all I want is a thoroughbred trainer to come on so we can discuss civilly in a nice manner, and maybe they can answer and enlighten me on why thoroughbred should only race every 3 or 4 weeks, and why, and the shoeing bit and the whole bit. I mean, but nobody wants to come on. I even gave my phone number out over the air. I must have got 100 calls from everybody except a thoroughbred trainer. But anyway, folks out there, this guy is the best at what he does, and I answered probably 15 to 20 questions about him because I get private calls and I get emails saying, what about his email? What about this? What about that? What does he does? And I just hope that there's especially a lot of thoroughbred trainers, because them horses, this guy's the guy. And if you have any kind of problem with the foot, just call Ian. Ian, just tell them a little bit about yourself. Tell them how you started, what you're doing now. If you remember about some of the horses that you put the glue ones on, or patch quarter crack, or fixed feet, and also tell about the white shoe hitting the sole, that whole bit. Go.
Okay. I started very young with my dad. He's the one who actually came up with the technique of lacing quarter cracks. This is back mid-60s. And my dad had lost his hand, and his hand got crushed in a corn picker. So he worked with one hand. So I'd hold the horse's foot on a stand. So I watched him do, thousands of those things through over a 10-year period, probably. When I did my first one, it was like I'd done it my whole life, because you see something so many times. And then I ended up I started in the standardbred world. I was in Detroit, Windsor, came down to New York. I just wanted to see the Meadowlands. Everybody's talking about the Meadowlands. This is back probably 78, 79. And when I walked in, you remember the kitchen there. I walked in the kitchen, saw one of the guys from Windsor, and he says, "Have you got your equipment?" And Ray Romanetti's the guy who flew me down to New York to work in a steak filly. And I said, "Yeah." And I lucked out. You remember Jack Johnson, Dr. Johnson?
Sure.
He watched me patch that horse, and he says, "Boy, you come down here, I'll get you all the work you can handle." And between him, Dr. Fox, Dr. Bomber, Dr. Sieber, all those guys were treated me very well. And there really wasn't anybody else that there were a few guys patch when I first got down, but nobody wanted to switch, change techniques, which I found odd, because it's a very common sense approach to quarter cracks. And then, you learn about horses' feet with standardbreds because of stone dust tracks and concussion, which is your biggest enemy. And now they're feeling it in the thoroughbred because all the bases are stone dust. So instead of having a nice clay base, so when those feet cut through the top surface of the track and they hit that stone dust, it's unforgiving. When I first started, it was 85, my first thoroughbred, very thin walled, and same thing. Dr. Hunt, Dr. James Hunt would just, look, it's my father in heaven that lines these things up. Because when James Hunt's coming through the barn when I'm lacing this thing, and he goes, "Wow, that's interesting. What kind of shoe do they have to wear?" And I said, "Well, whatever they run best in. They don't need a bar shoe." You remember Dr. Butler and the fiberglass patches, and usually a bar shoe. Well, that's crippling to thoroughbreds. You can't go over the track. They just don't race well. You never see horses running bar shoes. Very, very seldomly would you see a horse in a bar shoe. But anyway, he's the next guy, and I'd say within a year, I had probably 80% of Belmont. And I've been so blessed with the guys I've got to work for. Extremely knowledgeable trainers in both standardbred and thoroughbred world. And then comes the glue-on shoes. They started in California. Initially, I was against them because they're basically just gluing an aluminum shoe onto and they're a poor-footed horse anyway, a thoroughbred. So they put as you said, kind of a tight shoe on. They're just basically gluing it to the sole. And a lot of wall separations, which come from the sole. They start as a solar abscess, and they work up the wall, and they blow the whole quarter off. So I was kind of against them. We had one horse that couldn't handle nails. So I said, well, let me get something to at least restrict the glue from the sole. And he went better. There's no doubt about it. So I thought, maybe there's something to this, but I'd say a high percentage of them, especially if you set the shoe back where it should be, will go sore in that medial heel within 5 days. So then we started working with pads, so we'd get something to absorb the concussion in the heel area. And now I glue a ton of them, along with a bunch of other guys that use that type of shoe. Many different ways how to glue horses, but that's kind of. And now it's just, like I say, I get to work on some real nice horses. It's a privilege to actually get under some of these things. It is an absolute honor. And now I'm drifting back into my standardbred world, which I love working on them. They're just such.
Well, it's a lot easier, right? You just throw them on a set of cross ties and
Yes. Pretty well. Their feet have changed because when this is back in the through the whole Meadowlands, I never went down to the farms that much. I was well and busy enough with just Meadowlands and Belmont. You know, Belmont Aqueduct, both those tracks were full. So I had a handful of horses or a plate full of horses there to work on. So I really didn't travel down to the farm. So I kind of got, as Meadowlands shut down, I kind of got out of that world. I'd have a few guys that bring bad quarter cracks or, you know, wall separations to me, that kind of stuff. They'd just ship them to wherever it was.
Keeps freezing up.
And then, you know,
didn't you get invited out to Saudi Arabia or someplace like that?
I don't travel the world that much. I went over to one of the greatest trips ever. I went to Ireland for Aidan O'Brien to teach.
Oh.
It was Michael Reardon's the one who set it up. And I went over there. You'll find this fascinating. I went over there to show them how I patch quarter cracks. They get a lot of quarter cracks in the springtime. Well, when I get there, they bring out 7 horses, 6 of them, they're behind. One had one up front. So, and I found out years later and it came back to concussion because Aidan asked me, what do you think's causing these quarter cracks? And I certainly couldn't fault the shoeing. It looked fine. And I mean, they're going from turf to wood chips, which is fairly kind. And I found out it was about 4 years later, I was talking to Dave Dugan, an Irish guy. And he said the day we changed from turf to wood chips, I couldn't tell what was going on behind with my horse. I could feel it. I knew he was moving completely different. So I'm watching the horses up front. And because the wood chips are breaking away, he said they're just going wide and they're just slamming them feet in the ground, trying to get a hold of the surface. So you're back to concussion. Concussion and stacked up heels are probably number one cause of quarter cracks. And I actually ran into Aidan at a Breeders' Cup when we were talking about it. And he said, well, we now, every spring when we're transitioning, we'll put bar shoes on them, which the frog takes part of the load. And that was enough he said we didn't get totally away from them, but we did improve. Everything good? Can you hear me, or are we breaking up? Or
oh, I hear you. Every maybe 15, 20 seconds, you just freeze up for a second. And I don't understand why, because my speed on this is good. I just had my friend shut his computer off. Maybe that was the problem. We'll see. So this is off. So we'll continue.
Yeah,
but we're getting most of what you're saying. Every once in a while, you just freeze up.
Yeah, I think for people, I think the greatest thing a trainer can. You started off talking about feet being a huge cause of problems. I interviewed Dr. John Steele. This is 15 years ago. And I asked Dr. Steele how much secondary lameness stems from just sore front feet. And he said, all secondary lameness. He said it so nonchalantly, I was like shocked. And I looked and he said, oh, yeah. I remember he got up off his chair and he walked over the horse. He said, as soon as those heels start bothering them, they're going to start stabbing and they'll jam their shoulders. And then their feet won't address the ground the way a sound horse would. And then their ankles and knees get involved. And he said, before you're done, they're getting underneath themselves, trying to get the weight off the front end. He said, when you're done, it'll be in the hocks.
And for those who don't know, Dr. Steele was a premier veterinarian here. He worked for Stanley Dancer, Billy Houghton, all the top stables. And I think later on, it was maybe 20, I think, but he was a premier vet. But that was very interesting what he says, that just about every lameness is secondary to the feet.
Front feet. Specifically front feet. And when he went in the jumping world, which is where he ended up at the end, he just dominated because he knew hind end lameness so well.
Yeah.
And he did extremely well. He's very, very, another guy I was blessed to meet. This is a wonderful, wonderful guy.
Oh, you had all the pulling for you. I mean, if every vet that you mentioned and a few more that I know that I was very friendly with, whenever there was a foot problem, your name always came up with all of the vets who invented.
What was interesting, most blacksmiths really didn't want to mess with quarter cracks. There were some guys, some did, but very few. They'd just rather get rid of the headache. And I wasn't a threat to their shoeing. I've never done traditional horseshoeing. All I've ever worked on is hoof lameness. So they were more than happy to hand it off to me. And I think that's what I enjoy doing, still enjoy doing it. There's nothing like sorting out a problem. They're all pretty well the same anymore, you know. And it's interesting, the standardbred world now, the way the shoeing has changed.
Tell me what's the difference between a do a lot of thoroughbreds wear glue-ons or not? See, the problem I had sometimes the standardbreds, all the way up until Mike McCarthy from Delaware packed it in. But the problem I found, and I won't name the horses or the trainers, is that thoroughbred foot is naturally the strongest foot is a round foot, not an oblong foot. But aside from that, the wall is very, very thin. You could the thoroughbred nails are smaller, shorter, and thinner than standardbred nails. You can only go up maybe if you're a good blacksmith a half inch, and they have the plates have four nail holes, and because you only went up maybe a half inch, and then they cut maybe a quarter of an inch off. There's really no place after 3 or 4 shoeings. There's no real solid foot to put a nail in, and they start cheating a little. They start going back toward the heel. They start quicking them, and they go to the front. And they start going in more to the sole. And almost every I'll bet I'd like to make somebody a bet that if you took a hoof tester and went into and went into somebody's barn, or just take 100 thoroughbreds, I would bet 75% of them would be sensitive to the hoof testers because the nail is too close, or they're actually quick.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. There's a lot of things there that you covered. Number one,
And
now
that's
all the,
where what's that?
I say a lot of things have changed. Now they have 8 nail holes per side, so they can pick and choose where they want to put their nails. Most of those guys will nail up a good 3/4 of an inch. I mean, you get when I walk up and see a horse and they're nailed a half inch above the bottom of the hoof, I know what's coming. He's extremely thin-walled. But they use slim blades. The nails have all changed, and these guys do. For what they got to work with, I admire the way they get it done, because it's, people who knock thoroughbred platers, they should jump in the game and show us how it's done, because it's not that simple. It is by far the most compromised foot because, like you said, they're thin-walled. What the biggest problem is, the heels will collapse. They can't take the weight up front, and they roll in. As one person said one time, it looks like somebody let the air out of the tire. You know how they just roll around.
Yeah.
And then you get into shoe placement. So now they got to set them in. They kind of follow that wall that's rolled in on the sole, and they set their shoes in, and they can't hang them out the back because they'll rip them off. So they're in a catch-22, and that's why when I go in and glue them, it's not even a fair comparison, because I'm building wall this horse will never have. The other thing, the thing I learned. It was with a horse in Delaware's tapering heels. It was actually one of Chad's horses was the first one. And that is by far another one of the greatest things I came across. I'll taper the back end of the heel. I'll just take my rasp, and like you were saying on one of your podcasts, sound horse is going to land heel first. And the first sign that a horse is a thoroughbred is they go short and choppy. They're stabbing. They don't stride out. So, you know, and they're what lameness is it to them? Now it's for the trainer to figure it out, and you know, whether it's something else going on other than feet. But I think Dr. Steele's spot on. I get all kinds of horses with ankles, got a suspensory starting to flare up. And as soon as you glue them, they're just gone. Within 2-3 days, it just vanishes. Because they're addressing the ground correctly. They're not putting all that stress landing on the toe.
So answer me this. Why doesn't every trainer just have glue-ons put on and leave them on for 4, 5, 6 weeks?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, they're expensive. It's expensive not to. And I get more and more guys. It's just growing by leaps and bounds. You know, it's interesting. And a lot of, you know, it's.
Well, it should grow. I mean, they pay 30, 40, 50, 100, 200 for a horse. What's the difference? Show them every 5 weeks. So it costs you $1,000, $1,500, $2,000. What's the difference?
Yeah. What I really want to do is I was talking to Dr. Holland out in Kentucky, maybe doing a study, taking a 2-year-old, as soon as they come off the farm, and set them up, keep their foot absolutely perfect, and get a bunch of them and see how much secondary lameness we can avoid. You know, over a big number of horses, you'd find out. And I think the results will be unbelievable. But there's a big difference in gluing.
Yeah, but it's not that what you just suggested will never happen. It's, you know, it's sad because I've seen so many, even when for a long time when I was out of the standardbred business for a while, I used to hang out with Alan Seawall. I had a bunch of horses in his barn, and just about every horse, just about every single horse should have had glue-ons. And all the ones that I had, I glued them on myself, and it just a big improvement. And then the secondary problem at that point becomes the primary problem because you fix the primary problem that was before. Yeah. And it's easier to keep them sound. It's easier to control. And I just don't understand why these horses do it. I've seen look. They just had the Kentucky Derby, the Belmont, this, that, and everything else. Half of the horses in the field are coming down the straight, everything else. Now, it's either conditioning or lameness, and it can't be lameness. Well, it might be. I would think it has something to do with the feet. But whether I'm right or wrong, I just don't understand why. That's the main problem, in my opinion, and Dr. Steele's opinion too. So why don't everybody just put glue-ons on? Listen, everybody is out there, and there's going to be probably within a month there's going to be 5,000-6,000 people watching this interview, and the ones that own horses, just give Ian a call.
Hopefully I got somebody in their area.
Huh?
I say I'm getting a little older now. I'm looking to slow down, Larry. But anyway, I've got to. There are a lot of the younger guys are jumping in. Because there's more. You know what really changed it for demand? I started posting on Facebook. I had no idea how far-reaching that was. And when you start showing how those shoes will absorb concussion and let a hoof capsule expand sideways
worldwide, so I just don't understand it. I could never understand it. That in my opinion, 70-80% of thoroughbreds have a foot problem. Most stem, in my opinion, from the nails being too close and being quick and
yeah, I don't think that's they're thin wall. It comes full pressure. I missed what you said there, Larry.
I stopped saying.
Okay.
I don't know if 5% of I don't even remember except for maybe some corns and standardbreds, and maybe the shoe be too wide for a flat-footed horse or something.
Yep.
But the thoroughbreds, 70-80%, in my opinion, should have glue-ons, where that's not the case with standardbreds. But standardbreds probably get more quarter cracks because of the surface,
Sure.
and and
Yeah.
everything else.
Well, the standardbreds I'm gluing now are responding unbelievably well. You take knee knockers, most of them come right off their knees. You know, it's feet. They're flipping. They're trying to get that weight off that medial heel, and they just flip it in.
Standardbreds, like you just says, they come right off their knees. What kind of shoe? Do you change the shoe or still leave a steel shoe? Do they?
No,
most of them wear aluminums now.
Yeah, a lot of guys will just go aluminum outer rim. Some guys want them to slide a little, so they'll leave a full swedge. Some guys want the borium on the toe. Doesn't matter to me because we can glue steel as easy as aluminum, so there's no real difference. The difference is they get their feet quit bothering them, they quit hitting their knees.
Yeah. Well, it cures a lot of things, and I really believe it. It boggles my mind when I see these thoroughbred races. And a standardbred race, and you've been around a long time, in a standardbred race, I don't care if it's the Meadowlands Pace or the Hamiltonian or 10,000 claimer, they finish within 10 lengths of one another. They finish the whole race at the finish line. You could fit right in the TV. That's not the case with especially in the last bunch of years. These just in the Belmont, and things strung out a quarter of a mile, running in, running out, losing action. Now these horses are inspected by the state vet every morning, so you know there's no ligament problem, no soft tissue problem, no heart problem, no knee problem, no nothing. They're basically racehorse sound, and they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. So if they're doing it, it has to be one of the two. And I don't know.
They got all kinds of things. They got all kinds of things that go on with them horses, and I don't think I shouldn't say, look, that's not my world of being a jockey or anything. Once they're not going to hurt them once they're out of the race. But like you said, you'll see them coming down the stretch. You get horses that won't switch their lead, or they just start going short. Their stride just shortens up because they just can't take it anymore.
You're being very kind.
Well,
you're being very kind and very.
Look, it's not that I've heard some of your other podcasts. Training them thoroughbreds ain't no walk in the park. They are a different animal. I've seen every one of those standardbred guys come through, and it takes them all about 3-4 years before they figure out, oh shit, I can't push quite so hard on them. They start losing weight, and they're just a different animal. And you can ask any one of those guys, and they're going to tell you, no, it's a totally different animal, thoroughbred from a standardbred. They can take some pounding.
We can talk about that another time, and that's why I want a thoroughbred, because
I'll work on that. I'll find the right guy for you. I think I know who I'm going to ask.
I just want to talk about everything that you just said. I want a thoroughbred trainer to come and this way we can have a discussion. Yeah, I can't talk about that with you. All I want to talk about with you is that you're the best at what you do. Every veterinarian that I know, and I know all the best, they all recommend you for any kind of foot problem at all. And going down, because I don't know how long it takes you. I know it used to take me, and like the horse I had, MMF, that I bought from Chapman, he had oblong feet. He had a quarter crack on every. He had 2 quarter cracks, one on each side of every foot. Yeah. And I patched. I did 1 foot every 4 days, 5 days. And they were basically clean, but and then he wound up winning 11, 12 races in a row after that, where before that he could never stay trotting. So with feet. And that's why I try to get you on so much to talk about it. And I wanted everybody out there to know, if you ever have a foot problem, just call them up. And if you would, unless you don't want no more business. I know that you're busy.
Well, look, I'm not. What I can certainly do, if they're on Facebook, they can just message me with pictures of their feet, and it tells them that one picture says 1,000 words, and then they'll confirm it. They're all the same. It's and standardbred, thoroughbred. I don't care. It doesn't matter what industry it is. The jumpers, it's all the same. They can't lose shoes, so they got to set them shoes in tight, and they're setting short, and you end up with a bunch of sole pressure. It all comes back to sole pressure. I'll bet all you want on that, because that's how. Look, I make my living making sore horses sound, and I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if I couldn't do it. And it seems to be the same thing over and over.
And that basically proves my point. From what you just said and what Dr. Steele said, and just pay more attention to the foot, because most of the time that's the primary problem, even though you can't look at it and see. Many times you look at the foot and you can't see. And I don't know, I don't want to talk about thoroughbred trainers, but yeah. But there's a simple way. Just take the pulse of the foot. And if there's a problem, you could tell just by the pulse of the foot, and then you start digging, and you're going to find something. You're going to find a corn, you're going to find a bruise, you're going to find a quarter crack. And all I'm saying is that if everybody called, problems would go away. Especially
I'll make one point there. It doesn't necessarily have to be a quarter crack or a wall separation, or even a corn. I've seen a lot. My favorite diagnostics pull the shoes, and if they move better tomorrow, obviously it's the shoe sitting on the sole,
or the nail quicken them.
Well, that could be. It's very rare. That is some of the least thing. It's all back in the back third of the foot. I'd say 95% of it, you go back to the back third of the foot. I know it is, because it's all I do.
Let me ask you a question. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot. If you take, now you says that each of them aluminum plates that thoroughbreds wear have, what'd you say, 8 nail holes on each side?
Yes. That just gives them a choice.
Put a nail in the last hole on each side of the foot. All right, so you know what's going to happen.
Oh yeah, of course.
Why do they have a nail hole there?
Yeah, I know. I understand what you're saying. I know. You never see them back there either.
All right.
They might use the first 5 if they're running out of foot.
You know who would put them back there? When the other 3 or 4 nails are not in there tight or not solid.
Yeah, no, those guys don't do that. No,
I know you're not going to say nothing, but
but they don't do it. They don't put them back there unless the wall's completely right. But in this day and age, they just rebuild the wall. They take the wall that's shot.
They need you to do that.
No, but they can do that. Look, there are so many gifted guys out there that do what I do. I'm not the only guy by any stretch. There's all kinds of talented guys out there that use Equilocks. I saw a pair of Polyflex. That guy did a phenomenal job gluing on. You might never even heard of them. Polyflex it's a urethane shoe. It lets the bulbs go up and down. And just a gorgeous job. There's many, many, many talented guys out there.
The product that you just mentioned, 70-80% of the blacksmiths refused to use it because they couldn't breathe. They thought they were going to get cancer.
Oh, you're talking the adhesive. Yeah. No, but that's just it. Look, if you're not using adhesives in this day and age, you're behind times. There's no doubt, because there's so many horses that need it. That's just a fact. And they're just going to be running past you. If you're the trainer I saw a couple today, and the one horse walked off, they're walking wide. The last thing they want to hit the ground is that medial heel. And the blacksmith wanted to glue him, and the trainer, he didn't want to go for it. So what are you going to do? He's the guy losing out.
Unbelievable.
The trainer, yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's so sad that they put the horses through this and they spend money on other stupid things and something that's so important. They're worried. I don't know how much you get for a pair of glue-ons, but I think when I left the industry, even though I did my own, there was a blacksmith that was doing them, and I think he was charging a couple of $100 a foot. I think.
Yeah, that's about right.
That's about
It's
right.
anywhere from 450, 500.
Yeah.
And they got the jumpers. I mean, it's just such a hassle getting to where they are. So you get travel time. Stuff
The best
like
money spent is that right for the horses' sake. That you said there's a lot of young, good blacksmiths around.
Oh yeah,
that are doing what you do.
Absolutely.
Well, when I was in the game 30 years ago, that was not the
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a
case, and I'm glad to hear that that's the case now. Thoroughbred trainer and find out why they're losing action and fields are spread out a quarter of a mile. But that has nothing to do with me and you.
Yeah.
I thank you so much for coming on. You're as good as you are doing what you're doing. You're that much of a nice guy too. You very, 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 very complimentary to all the people that you work for. Yeah, we have a question for you.
Sure.
Some of the horses they know of that he may have worked.
Oh, I have a guy called in a question. A couple of them, 3 or 4 of them here.
Yeah, go
They
ahead.
want to know if you would mention 1 or 2 horses that of note that you either patched or laced.
Quarter cracks? Well, door knock would be at the top of the list on recently. That he popped one just 3 days out of the Derby. And I didn't even patch him. I just laced it to stabilize the crack so he could get through the race.
Wow, I didn't know
We
that.
patched, we put them back together, and then he's one that I glued that didn't take to him.
Why?
Very, very interesting. You never know. Look, every horse is an individual. He raced in them in the Remsen and the must have been the Fountain of Youth, probably the Fountain of Youth, and raced lights out. 2 days later, I mean, he was sore. But he's a big horse, no foot, thin sole. I think there's just too much flex. The one thing about the pads, they're an 1/8 inch thick, so you're just elevating that frog off the ground a little bit. But in the thoroughbred world, it shouldn't matter because you got such a deep track. But Florida is Gulfstream's a hard track. They know the tracks that are hard that kind of bite them.
Damn.
So, but other than that, glue-ons, I glue a ton of them.
I didn't know that. Any other horses of note? I see there's one on Facebook that just won a race just the other day.
Yeah, that was a classic. I'm going over that. I glued the horse to finish second in the Met Mile for Brittany Russell. So I went over just to check on him. They shipped him up to Saratoga. They're out of Maryland, and Arch Kingsley was there, and we had met some time ago, years ago. And anyway, he was talking about his horse, and I said, well, let me take a look at him. And he's got no feet at all. And we glued him and changed him completely. Just turned him right around. We ended up gluing him front and back. And Arch actually does some shoeing. He wants to start gluing a bunch of his horses when he gets back to South Carolina. But that horse has turned him around completely. Couldn't have gone any better.
Well, I believe that it would help every horse, and I only hope that the kids that are coming up now do or as good as you or half as good as you, because then horses,
I got 2 or 3 guys. It's just they're just beautiful, man. Just set them on. It's all shoe placement, setting a big enough shoe on. You want to support the bulbs. That's all it is. Get everything off the sole and support the whole hind end of that foot. And these guys are just knocking it out of the park. I'm so delighted.
Do they work for you or
No, I don't know. But they asked me to show them, and that's what I do. the one guy that kind of changed it at Belmont, young guy, he was shoeing with another guy, and it was his wife's pony. He was an outrider, and the pony was lame. So she asked me to look at him. I said, just glue some shoes on. He'll probably be sound tomorrow. Well, Victor is the guy's name. He had no idea I glued the horse. The next day, he leads the horse out of the stall, and he asks his wife, Jessie, he said, what'd you give this horse, meaning drugs-wise? Because he's sound. He said, I didn't give him anything. He says, what are you talking about? He said, well, Ian came and glued shoes on. Well, he walked him up and down the shed. He's sound, saddled him up and used him all morning. And when he got off the horse, he phoned me and said, would you mind if I follow you? If I can ride along and see what you do. Because he was apprenticing as a blacksmith. He's going to go to blacksmith school. He's the first guy I'd ever asked in New York.
And you let him do it. And
oh, absolutely. And Victor does a beautiful job. There's more and more of those guys. But they don't work. They don't work for me. I'm just glad to see the kid doing well. He's got a couple young kids and just great guy.
You remember the time when in fact, the last time we met was the funeral parlor.
Oh, gee. Who would that be?
When I was with, oh, Jesus, God. The harness driver one of my best friends, I can't even remember. I'm going bad. My mind is going. Warren DeSantis.
Oh, yes. Dick Richards. What a good guy, Dick.
That was the last time I saw you in person. And Warren just passed recently, too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he called me up. I knew something was wrong. He just bought a brand new BMW when I was out in Florida. We went out to eat, and he says, we'll take my car. It was one of the big 740 BMWs, a big job. And I left Florida, and he called me up about a month later. You want to buy the car? And I said, what do you mean? You just bought it. And I knew something was wrong. He says, well, I want to get, that. And then he died a short time after that. And his wife told me that he kind of knew he was really, really sick. What a great guy he was. He was.
Dick was one of my favorite people of all time.
Yeah, he was a good guy.
I didn't know Warren that well. I'd met him a couple times, but Dick was just aces. What a sweetheart. Victory Lane.
Warren was a great. Warren's very, very smart. And Dick, he invented. I wonder if they still sell that lotion that he invented.
Yeah, I think they do. I haven't seen it around. That's when he came. I kind of brought him into Belmont, and a lot of guys used it. I don't.
Yeah.
It
was really good stuff. It really worked.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Ian, I thank you so much. I am so sorry that we kept freezing up a little bit. But I'm going to watch it now when we hang up, and if it was bad, if it froze up, if I get a lot of complaints, what I'm going to do is just take it down, and we'll with your permission, we'll do it again. There's so many more things I wanted to talk to you about and ask you, but it's breaking up, and I just had this all fixed. I don't know why it's doing that, but thank you so much for your time, and what else could I say? It says that you're a good friend, you're a good guy, and you're doing God's work out there with them thoroughbred people. But I hate to see you leave the thoroughbred crew because they need you desperately out there. But based on what you said, you have a couple of kids out there that are doing good work at Belmont. The standardbred guys, all the good trainers. Well, some of the good trainers, I don't know. I think they're having some kind of problem over there. But keep up the good work. Thank you so much for you back, and we'll do it again if it's okay with you.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure, Larry. Good seeing you.
Good seeing you, and take care of yourself.
All right. Take it easy.
I'll see you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Well, that's it, folks. It's freezing up again. I don't know why. I don't know. So I'm just going to end it. I don't know what to do.
It's
I had a guy come in here, fixed everything. It ran perfect. We did one podcast, and now it started freezing up again. And this is the guy I didn't want to freeze up because every word he said was important information. But all right, that's it, folks. See you Thursday. We're going to have 2 more guests on Thursday night. It's going to be a short one because I know everybody wants to watch the presidential debate. And so we'll see you Thursday night at 8 o'clock.